at 7:30, and at 8:30 the world premiere of the magnificent miniseries Sword of Honor, tonight on 7.
This is an unusual part of Australia, a place of heavy rain, of lush forests, and a coral-fringed coastline. Permanent lakes are common, and these become gardens of water lilies. Among the water lilies are the lotus birds, daintily treading on long toes which spread the weight over the floating leaves. A magpie goose flies low over the water to look for food on the marshy edges. Grey teal. These ducks rove freely across the continent. Egret. Most waterbirds are wanderers. The magpie goose. Once this bird was found in numbers in southern Australia. Today, these geese are largely birds of the tropic north. Probably there are about 500,000 of these birds left, but as their swamps are drained, they will disappear. However, sanctuaries have been set aside to make sure some birds at least survive. Lagoons like these are a tourist's delight, and tourism is rapidly becoming a big money earner in northern Australia.
More copying paper.
Choosing the best copying paper is a reflex action.
When kids share the same love of wind and water as our America's Cup yachtsmen, they need to share the healthy nourishment that Tip Top multigrain provides. Multigrain plays an important role in the crew's high-energy diet because it has pre-softened multigrains for goodness and fiber and Tip Top's great white bread taste.
Tip Top's the one.
Tip Top multigrain, voted #1 multigrain by the kids and crew of Australia.
From the peaceful Australian countryside to the battlefields at the Etna, to a tropical paradise.
I know you're going to break my heart.
Andrew Clark and Tracy Mann in a passionate epic of love and war.
We are in danger here.
It's a soldier's story.
We did our duty.
It's a pacifist story.
Tony, we're not against you. We're against the politicians who sent you there.
A landmark television event, Sword of Honor, commencing tonight 8:30. Proudly brought to you by Holden on 7.
Honeyeater probes a bottle brush flower. Even in suburban gardens, the lush growth encourages many birds. Another honeyeater, the helmeted friarbird. All these birds have long beaks for probing flowers and brush tongues for licking up the nectar. Sooty terns nesting on Michaelmas Cay. This cay is a tiny coral island a few miles offshore from the city of Cairns in northern Queensland. The dark-coloured birds are noddies, which also nest on this island. This adult sooty is ready for nesting. An ever-present danger to nesting birds are the silver gulls. This gull is busy devouring a tern's egg. Any egg left unguarded for a few minutes will be seen by the sharp-eyed silver gulls. Under the hot tropic sun, a nesting sooty has to keep its egg cool by shading, rather than keeping it warm by sitting on it. The sooties do their best to drive off marauding gulls, not always successfully. The sooties were at all stages of nesting. Here is a young sooty tern almost ready to fly, but still in the immature dark plumage. A group of adult sooty terns. A teenager. In late afternoon, the chicks are fed by adults back from the sea. Here, an immature bird begs from its parents. There's an elaborate pattern of food begging, and a chick must work hard for its meal. Eventually, the parent brings up the food it has stored in its crop and feeds its baby. In about a month, these chicks will be big enough to fish for themselves, picking food off the surface of the ocean. Then both parents and chicks disappear into the vast Pacific. Where do they go? Nobody knows. All we know is that each year they return, drawn to this tiny piece of golden sand to carry out the cycle of courting, egg-laying and rearing of the young in this eternal cycle of nature. In a crowded colony, disturbance is frequent, and sometimes an adult breaks off feeding a baby to drive away an intruder. These seabird sanctuaries are exciting places, filled with color and movement. Because the birds are at all stages of nesting, there's something different to see whichever way you look. Nesting is an almost all-the-year-round affair. New birds arriving to fill the gaps left by those which have raised their young and gone. Once, these islands were raided regularly for sooty eggs, for mainland cooks. But today, they are sanctuaries. A reef heron on Green Island. This island is a few miles to the south of Michaelmas Cay and is one of the most visited resorts of the Great Barrier Reef. Reef herons come in two colors, dark brown and white. At high tide, they roost in island trees. At low tide, they prowl the reefs, snapping up unwary fish, crabs, and other kinds of sea life. High overhead, a frigate bird watches for seabirds returning with full stomachs. This sea pirate dives on the homecomer and forces it to disgorge part of its catch. The frigate bird, with its magnificent powers of flight, is relentless in its attack, and few birds escape paying tribute. Along the coast of Queensland are the 1,200 miles of the Great Barrier Reef, one of the wonders of the world. Vincent and his family spent many happy hours wandering over the reef at low tide. a hard coral, one of the staghorn group. In this coral home live thousands of coral polyps. Corals come in all kinds of shapes, colors and sizes. A giant clam, biggest shellfish of the reef. Clams suck in seawater, take out the microscopic life on which they feed, and then pump out the water again. Spider shells are active creatures. Turned wrong side up, the animal soon rights itself. A huge biscuit star. A solitary coral, sometimes called a mushroom coral. This is a single animal in its home. Usually, coral polyps are much smaller and live in colonies. A sea cucumber, a relative of the starfish. This small shark shelters under the edges of coral reefs. Vin found it reluctant to come out into the open. On the reef, sharks are attractive creatures, not like their large and dangerous deep-sea relatives. These reefs at low tide are a nature wonderland.
When you buy imported furniture, you pay a lot extra for export costs, currency rates, transport fees and import taxes. But when you buy Australian craftsmanship, like this luxurious pure leather lounge suite by Matthews, or this superb solid Jarrah setting by Swan Valley, you'll find it's world class. See for yourself at the Fussy Furniture Fellas 3 warehouses.
You'll save hundreds of dollars because all you pay for is the craftsmanship.
Mum, won't you be late?
Oh, I've got to wash your father's fishing clothes. They smell to high heaven.
Go on, I'll do your wash.
Don't use cold water.
No, Mum.
Got my powder?
Yes, Mum.
Is the water hot?
Yes, Mum.
No smell. Nothing cleans like cold power. But I've tried cold water.
But not with cold power.
Cold Power removes dirt and odours in cold water.
When kids share the same love of wind and water as our America's Cup yachtsmen, they need to share the healthy nourishment that Tip Top multigrain provides. Multigrain plays an important role in the crew's high-energy diet because it has pre-softened multigrains for goodness and fibre and Tip Top's great white bread taste.
Good on you, Mum. Tip Top's the one.
Tip Top multigrain, voted #1 multigrain by the kids and crew of Australia.
Good on you, Australia!
The hard way to fix a crack like this is with grout. The smart way is with flexible polysilicon sealant. It's waterproof and won't crack at the join. Now the hard way to fix cracks like this is with plaster. The smart way is with flexible paintable polygap sealant. And the hard way to get rid of cracks like these is to fill them. The smart way is to cover them with Polytex. So whatever cracks you have to fix, Poly products are the smart way.
Monday night on Day by Day, the moving story of terminally ill kids being granted their greatest wish.
It's the only place I wanted to go. It's the only place I ever wanted to go.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's just all your dreams come true.
Also Monday, the madcap Melbourne man who jumped off the Statue of Liberty.
It's something that I felt somebody was going to do and it may as well be me.
Meet him Monday at 7 on 7.
On the town common of Townsville to the south of Cairns were thousands of brolgas. Brolgas belong to a group of birds known as cranes. In most parts of the world, cranes have been protected. However, some species have fallen on hard times. The whooping crane of America has been reduced to about 50 birds. In Australia, the brolgas are still common, but naturalists are trying to make sure plenty of ground is left both for feeding and breeding. The brolgas gathered on the Townsville town common are mostly feeding on wild plant bulbs in the ground. Every now and again, some of the birds would begin the brolga dance. Usually this starts when one bird walks stiffly round its partner with the wings half spread. Then it leaps high into the air and gracefully descends. Then other birds may catch the excitement and a brolga ballet starts. dances by groups of birds were called corroborees. An old name for the brolga is native companion, since it dances in its own corroborees, just like the Aborigines danced theirs. Hundreds of miles to the south of Townsville is Brisbane, the capital city of Queensland. In a lake not far from Brisbane, Vin found a pair of white-headed stilts nesting. The birds had built a nest on a small island in the lake. Vin had arrived in the nick of time. The first chick had hatched, and Father Stilt was keeping a watchful eye on it. As soon as each chick hatches, it leaves the nest, and the father bird guards it while Mother is busy hatching out the other eggs. On the nest, a second chick has hatched. 2 out and 2 to go, as Mother settles again. Stilts, with their long legs, can search the shallow water on the edge of a lake for food without getting their trousers wet. The long beak also helps in seizing small animals under the water. The third chick hatches. Only 1 to go. This is an exciting time for the parents. The mother stilt would be able to hear the last chick moving around inside its shell. The chicks are beautifully camouflaged, and on a warning call from either parent, go to ground and stay very still. Young animals always face the greatest danger. An adult has learned how to stay alive. The youngster depends on the parents to teach it the tricks of the trade. The mother stilt settles once more on the nest. If the last egg does not hatch soon, she'll move off with the other 3 chicks that have emerged. So she sits and waits. Tomorrow we'll see the nest deserted and an excited family of white-headed stilts foraging around the edge of the lake. Dolphins. Roaming the seas of the world are these interesting animals. They're highly intelligent and are often used to entertain the public in large aquariums. A dolphin is not a fish, but a mammal, and is really a kind of whale. Being a mammal, it must come to the surface to breathe through the single large blowhole on the top of its head. Dolphins have been called the marine brothers of man, and most countries now protect them. Sharks are an ever-present danger in all Australian seas. Lorikeets. These rainbow and scaly-breasted lorikeets provide one of the most unusual shows the Gold Coast of Queensland has to offer. From the forests surrounding Currumbin, thousands of wild birds gather each morning and afternoon. Here, they're fed with a mixture of bread, water, and honey. This has been going on for 20 years. These are all wild birds. The story started when a beekeeper named Alex Griffiths found bushbirds coming to eat scraps of honey he'd left behind. Alex liked birds, so he put out more honey. So many lorikeets came to feed, he decided he might as well give up keeping bees and keep birds instead. Today, his place at Currumbin is world famous, a place every tourist visits. There's something unforgettable about this unusual trust between man and the wild creatures of the rainforest. And this is the home of the Lorikeets, Green Mountains, a national park in southern Queensland. Before the First World War, the O'Reilly family began a dairy farm here. Today, they run a guest house for visitors to the national park. As at Currumbin, the birds are completely tame. These crimson rosellas, through 50 years of protection, have lost all fear of man. This is the kind of country called rainforest, though some call it jungle. The paddy-melon wallabies come out of the rainforest to feed in the late afternoon. Then Serventy feeds a crimson rosella. Red-browed finches come for crumbs. This female blue wren only comes out of curiosity. It's an insect eater. This is a carpet snake, a harmless python. The heat of the day brings it out in search of food. The brightly colored male blue wren